vote for Donald Trump. I love my freedom. I will vote for Donald Trump.
Well, in today's episode of F Around and Find Out MAGA edition, cattle ranchers in the state of Nebraska who voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump fear the impact on their businesses when Donald Trump implements his mass deportation program that he campaigned on for almost 2 years, that they voted for. And now they're realizing that if he actually implements it, they'll go bankrupt. He told you for almost 2 years that he was going to deport 20 million Hispanic, Latino, undocumented immigrants.
So I'm in Argentina, in cattle country, a couple hours outside Buenos Aires. I'm at a small ranch, which is actually a breeding operation. They help other bigger ranches improve the genetic stock of their cattle. And I interviewed the owner of this operation, whose name is Martin Vivanco, and he said that he's thrilled about the idea of the US dramatically increasing imports of Argentinian beef, which is something Donald Trump has said he wants to do. Martin said that that would be really good for business and that Argentinian beef producers have for a long time aspired to a bigger share of the American market. He also said something else interesting, which is that the beef that's produced here that goes back to the States is not generally mass market stuff that winds up on supermarket shelves. It's really high quality cuts that go to restaurants and caterers, hotels, high-end buyers. And that's because the beef here is just really high quality. It's all like this, like what you see behind me, free-range, grass-fed. The conditions here are perfect for raising really high-quality cattle. So it's not likely that these increased exports from here to the US are actually going to really help the American consumer that much. They'll definitely help Argentinian cattle ranchers and exporters. On the other hand, US cattle ranchers are very much not happy about this idea. And my colleague, Rosa Flores, has been talking to some of them in Nebraska.
I'm Rosa Flores in Hershey, Nebraska. I spoke with 5 cattle ranchers in this area. They're all Republican. They all support President Donald Trump. And they say that they support a lot of his policies. They believe in America first. But they say that they don't agree with the president on everything. In fact, if I were to summarize all the conversations I had into one message from these cattle ranchers, I would say that they believe that the federal government should stay out of their business. They believe in free enterprise.
I agree with him on a lot of his issues, but on this issue, I would disagree with trying to, obviously do anything to lower the price of beef to the beef producers. On the other side of it, you would like to see, a cheaper food supply for the consumer, but not necessarily at the expense of the producer.
So in essence, President Trump don't interfere in the market?
Well, we don't. We appreciate all he does, but being in the market is probably not something we're very anxious to have the government in.
Some Republican lawmakers use the words strongly concerned to describe this move by the president. There's a rancher in Wyoming who used the word betrayed. The ranchers that I talked to here in Nebraska say that's too strong of a word. They say they would use disagreement. They say they don't have beef with the president. They just disagree with him on this.
Unfortunately, we have an administration that thinks that they need to lower the price of beef. President Trump on Friday actually made a statement that said we should lower the price of beef, and ultimately that's lowering the price of cattle. That's not something we need to do. I just want our members to know that Nebraska Farm Bureau is adamantly opposed to anything that would artificially lower the price of beef. We have worked hard to get our cattle market where it is. It's a supply and demand issue right now. But quite frankly, we need this bright spot here in Nebraska. So I have communicated with all of our federal delegation and let them know that we are opposed to any move that would artificially lower the price of beef cattle. They have worked that up to the leadership already today. And so stay tuned as we kind of follow this story. Hopefully we can get this tamped down. But just want to make sure that that I'm doing everything that I can as your president of Nebraska Farm Bureau to ensure that our beef sector here in Nebraska and the country continues to thrive. Until next time.
So we're getting ready for the first domino to fall, and we know what happens after the first one falls. Well, the state of Nebraska, the governor, Jim Pillen, has asked the federal government for help because they're not going to be able to pay their bills this year. And here's the problem in Nebraska. They had over a $2 billion contract with the Chinese government to export soybeans to China. Well, out of that $2 billion, they've canceled all the contracts. So out of that $2 billion, $350 million was state revenue taxes. They're not getting any of that. And the governor also goes on to say that because the migrant farmers weren't able to work in Nebraska this summer, that those people didn't pay their taxes either. And the farmers who already have crops in the ground, folks, they've already spent their money. They're going to need help too because they're not getting any money from the contracts anymore. So Nebraska is the first state. And when you look at the Midwest, you're probably looking at Kansas, you're looking at Iowa, South Dakota, all of those places that are large exporters of grain.
I voted for Donald Trump.
Okay. What were you excited about when you cast that vote?
I'm just going to pull the pin on this grenade and let it go. I think there are large swaths of our society and our government that are dysfunctional for a whole host of reasons. And maybe it's time to burn the house down, figuratively.
Wow.
Maybe we're doing too much. And if we could back off with our government and let the common citizen make more of their own decisions, then I can do whatever I want to do and I can sink or swim at it. And my neighbor can do the same thing.
All right. Let's talk about the election. Who'd you vote for?
So I've seen a lot of MAGA farmers, they're crying and they're saying, buy our American beef. So before the election, they were saying that, these policies were going to help them out. But now that they realize that those policies don't benefit them, now they want us to buy their beef from them. I think karma does exist. And the only farmers that I would ever buy is our blue farmers that are affected. And a lot of you dumbasses affected a lot of innocent people. And so, nope, I say we don't. I say we form an alliance and we just buy from blue farmers. That's what we need to do.
We just got some beef back from the meat locker, so I wanted to chat with you about ordering meat from a farmer. When you order meat from a farmer, typically you're going to pay a hanging weight. Hanging weight and carcass weight are the same thing. This is after the animal has been slaughtered, the non-usable innards and hide and head have been removed. Typically, your hanging weight is about 65% of your live weight. The meat that you take home is actually a different weight. Take-home weight, again, is another 65% of your hanging weight. So if you go home and you weigh your meat out and you're like, this doesn't match the hanging weight, that's right, and it shouldn't. The meat locker, the farmer, they're not taking meat from you. When they debone and make the cuts that you need and take off the stuff that's dried on the outside from aging, you're left with 65%. Have you ever ordered a quarter, half, or whole beef? Want me to share more about ordering beef from a farmer?
Coming to you today, discussing the president's tweet today that is hitting all the social media and the networks, major media. I think it's time that we need a calm, collected voice to present the facts. And I think if everybody out there, trust me, I'm not a fan of what Trump's out there spewing. I wished he was getting advised difference on the timing. We'll go into that in a minute, but...
So it's almost impossible for Trump to get critiqued by any officials here in Nebraska, right? It just doesn't happen. Despite the fact that with his trade wars, his tariffs, he is putting our farmers, most of whom voted for him, in very precarious places. Well, then this week, he announces, let's buy our beef from Argentina. The same Argentina that he's sending $40 billion to. Why wouldn't we help them out?
I think what we need is we need to present the facts, and we need to get the facts to the major media. All this is political banter. It means nothing. Nothing that has been said is derogatory to this market besides the fear factor. Facts are, this is a demand-driven market we're in. We have slightly lower numbers than a year ago, but demand is what created the increase at price. The demand made the price go up to slow demand a little because we don't have enough product worldwide. There's not 1 pound more beef today available in the world than yesterday. Nothing that has been said, including...
Thanks for joining us. So the administration plans to effectively quadruple the amount of Argentinian beef that can enter the U.S. at this lower tariff rate. How are you and Maureen and the rest of your family feeling about this increased foreign competition in the United States?
Well, we certainly don't like it. Cattle business is a tough business to make money in the way it is. We don't need politicians beating it down with the imports.
Can you explain why ranchers feel that the quality of American beef is so much higher?
Well, we really come a long ways in the cattle industry. We have EPDs on the bulls that we better carcass, better maternal, and we also have a lot better nutrition now. And so our product from start to finish is a lot better than it was years ago. And it's a high quality, safe product, and people like it, and they're going to eat it. I don't know anything about the Argentina meat, but I'm not too concerned. People are going to like our product.
I know it's been an especially tough year for ranchers. I know it's been an especially tough year for ranchers because of drought and disease impacting cattle. The administration says this is just a short-term solution since the price of beef has gone up nearly 14% in the last year. How has your business been affected by that inflation?
Well, a lot of our costs have doubled. Fertilizer is $43 an acre a year or two ago, and now it's $74 an acre because it comes out of Canada. A lot of the fertilizer got a tariff on it. We're a new windrower. We tried to trade them every 3 years. 3 years ago, they were 168, and I just priced one. They're 280. So our costs have not quite doubled, but they're pretty close.
And these tariffs have hurt you?
Yeah, well, naturally. I mean, anytime you got to pay more for fertilizer and machinery and equipment, it hurts. No doubt about it.
Opening up some more shipments from Argentina is going to create 1 more pound of available beef than there was a week ago. That's a fact. The only thing opening up Argentina is going to do is change the price of the lower end quality trim coming from Argentina to here in relevance to the tariffs and the currency difference between Brazil. We have Brazil on a higher tariff level after they exceeded their quota. So we can come in from Argentina. That doesn't mean it's going to be cheaper, but it might be cheaper to the retailer. But whoever was buying it from Argentina is going to go to Brazil, and they're going to buy it at a reduced price than what our higher tariff level was. So it goes back to the fact
that steak is freedom. And if you'd like to source beef from a trusted place, American ranchers raised on American soil and delivered straight to American customers, go check out my new website, bidonbeef.com, an auction platform where we let you pick the ranch and the price and the cut that gets delivered to you.
Bidonbeef.com. That's a whole nother discussion we're going to have another day because the food is really the next frontier, and you guys are the tip of the spear. But certainly, congratulations on keep giving them hell, man. All right.
Hey, thank you so much. And
I'm not saying you deserve it. I'm saying you got what you voted for. I'm getting a lot of cattle ranchers that are all up in arms about Trump bringing in beef from other countries. We literally fucking told you that he puts every other fucking country first. Argentina first, Israel first, Qatar first. You didn't have a problem voting for him when it affected other people, but now that it's affecting you, you have a problem. He's probably going to open Trump's steaks back and get those steaks that he's getting from Argentina and putting them on his store. And if they're cheaper than what you're selling, I'll probably buy one.
There's not 1 pound more beef in the world than there was a week ago. And let's go to the price of beef increase. Pretend beef for your lower cuts, your roast and your sirloins and your cube steaks and your ground beef is $3 higher than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. With our per capita consumption here, that amounts to $180 a year total to the average consumer buying lower end beef products in retail stores. That's $15 a month. The health care has went up 30 times that in the last year. Their tires, their oil changes, all those things have went up percentage-wise way more. So is the processed foods. Beef is not exceptionally high, and it has not went up higher than anything else. It is actually at a stay-in-business level that will increase the United States cow herd now. And that is what was needed to get more animals here for the future for the price of beef to come down. But we can't fix that for 30 months with a heifer retained today. It'll take 30 months for her to put meat on a plate. What Rollins said yesterday, opening up more grazing land, that's great. But we're going to spread out the animals we have. Again, that does not create 1 more pound of beef. You have to retain a heifer today to increase the animals to stock the grass next year. And it's 30 months before that hits a plate. So that is not any time in the next 2 years derogatory to the beef price or supply of animals. It's actually counter. Because if you open that up and if you keep a heifer to graze that ground, to supply beef in 30 months, she will not be in the food system in the next 12 months. So it actually creates a shortage of beef the next 12 months, not an increase. His tweet today, and we go back to his advisors, they can't even get the verbiage right. I mean, President Trump tweeted that we're in the shape we're in because of his tariffs on Brazilian cattle coming into this country. It's not Brazilian cattle coming into this country, it's Brazilian beef. We're in the shape we're in today because he is correct. The business has not been good the last decade, and our producers have went out of business, and between drought and the fact there was no profitability have decreased the number of cattle in the country. So again, we need the price to stay here to incentivize heifer retention in order to increase the U.S. cow numbers. But keep in mind, again, that will decrease the numbers ready for harvest the next 12 months. His advisors should also have been telling him, hey, there's a better time for this. Everybody that voted for you in the cattle business is shipping cattle, buying cattle, or turning the cattle they raised out to graze right now. This is harvest time in America for the spring calving herds, which I believe it's 70% of the cattle in the United States are spring calving. And so this is a really, really piss poor time to be putting this political banter out of there. When it affects the bottom line, it affects the consumer, and it affects the supply of beef, absolutely none. This is political rhetoric to try to get the consumer, I guess, to think he's doing something. And that's how all cattlemen, cattle media outlets, everybody that's pro-cattleman should be presenting this and how we ought to be reacting to it. Screaming and yelling for his head, acting like it's a big deal, running to sell the board. That just creates a panic that we don't need. The facts are they can't change the amount of beef available right now. What they can change with all this news and publicity is the demand by telling the consumer how high it is instead of telling the consumer it's still the best bang for the buck in the grocery store. So I think we need to change the narrative here. Cattlemen need to stay calm. Our representation needs to advise Secretary Rollins, President Trump, and his advisors that the stuff he's putting out is incorrect and it's not going to affect the supply of beef the way they think it will. We need an animal science lesson to the people that represent us right now. And if they would like one, my number is 620-546-1789. And I'll be glad to talk to anybody, anytime about this that is advising any of our representation. U.S. Cattlemen's, RCAF, NCBA. I would deplore all of them to have a calm, strategic approach to rebuting this in the media and the public's perception. Folks, we're short on cattle. We're going to be short on cattle. The demand is good. Some of the reasons, the increased packing. We don't have enough animals for the increased packing. That's the other thing Secretary Rollins addressed last night was that they were going to do to fix this price is increase packing. Increasing packing would make the cattle higher, increase demand. We have more packing than we have cattle. So if you increase the processing plants, I think it's a great idea. We need them more diversified, spread out across the country for the producers to be closer regionally, number one. Number two, it's a national security issue. We don't need them stacked on top of each other to where some country or somebody wanting to harm us could hurt our food supply, in a very, very tight area. But increasing packing is positive for the cattle business. It will create more demand. This is not a negative. This is not going to reduce the market. Anyway, anybody that would like to visit with me, like I said, my number is 620-546-1789. And I think lots of cattlemen, lots of people that represent cattlemen, whether that's sale barns, order buyers, our associations, and especially our representatives that, like Kansas, we don't get anything from. I can't believe they're not out helping support Kansas cattlemen through this, and the other states need to also. Senator Rounds is the only one I've seen out making sense and trying to post something to help. We need a lot more help on this front to change the narrative and bring the truth to the people. Anyway, it's a good day to be a cattleman. Beautiful weather. The calves are moving.
We reported the Trump administration is considering more beef imports from Argentina now as part of his plan to cut into record beef prices. And today, our WJZ News team spoke with local cattle farmers right here in Maryland who say a move like that would dramatically hurt beef producers throughout the country.
Right now, the United States beef supply gets about 2% of its beef that's in the grocery stores from Argentina. So if we were to increase that by 2 or 3 more percent, it would not dramatically reduce the cost of beef in the stores, but what it would do is dramatically hurt the beef producer in the United States.
President Trump defended his decision, posting on social media about his record with cattle ranchers, saying that his tariffs help protect those farmers, but did acknowledge the price of beef has to come down. Jessica Williamson, who you just heard from there, represented by Congresswoman April Delaney, and WJZ reached out to the representative about the president's decision, saying the quickest way to reduce prices at the store for Maryland families is to end the ongoing trade wars and to stop cutting vital government services.
When China said they don't give a fuck, they meant it. If you haven't heard, China has ended its beef exports from the U.S. Losing those exports is worth $1.6 billion to the U.S. And you want to guess which state exports the most? Nebraska. And they have a $400 million budget short, which means the Nebraskan ranchers are not going to be able to get a subsidy from the state because they're already $400 million short. China took that beef exports right over to Australia. And China didn't stop there. They are also reducing their soybean exports by 9.5% or almost $5 billion. And Indiana is going to feel that pain seeing that they export $2.6 billion or 60% of their soybean crops to China. And China is going to subsidize that through Brazil. So that means we are losing again. Have you noticed that they are targeting red states? That seems pretty strategic if you ask me, targeting red states.
How much money do you need to start ranching in Nebraska? Well, it depends where you are in the state. Let's say you want to run 25 cows. Well, in the Sandhills, you may need 250 acres. At an average of $960 an acre, that's $240,000. But in northeast Nebraska, land averages are closer to $9,700. So you're talking over $700,000 just for land. Then you throw in fencing, equipment, maybe a used pickup and trailer, and you're talking, $400,000 to $900,000 just to get started with 25 head. Now, before you give up on that dream, I'm starting with 3 head, and it didn't cost me that much. There are ways to get around spending $900,000 to get started in Nebraska. And if topics like that interest you, go ahead and check out the Egger Summit community. It's the private community that I started because I believe in family operations, and I want to help more family operations get started. Not only that, I want to help the family operations that exist to ensure that they can pass down their operation to the next generation and avoid being sold out to the highest bidder, aka the investors. The link's in my bio, and as always, God bless.
Pete Ricketts always talks about Nebraska being
the beef state. We truly are the beef state here in Nebraska. We're the beef state.
But then when it comes time to stand up for our ranchers, it's nothing but a bunch of corporate buzzwords.
A market-based solution. We really should look for more market-based solutions. Finding market-based solutions.
We deserve better than this. My name is Dan Osborne, and I'm running for U.S. Senate against Wall Street Pete. I support reinstating mandatory country of origin labeling.
I'm talking about the country of origin labeling. If you buy food and it comes from a foreign country, it must be labeled.
Enforcing the Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921 through the United States Department of Agriculture.
The proposed rule is designed to implement the provisions in the over 100-year-old Packers and Stockyards Act that sought to protect America's farmers and ranchers against unfair practices in the marketplace.
Passing the Processing Revival and Interstate Meat Exemption Act, otherwise known as the PRIME Act.
Let's empower these small meat processors so our farmers aren't forced to euthanize animals. Let's protect our citizens' access to protein. Let's get the federal government out of the way and allow our farmers to safely deliver wholesome, local farm-to-consumer meats.
And using the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice to enforce antitrust laws already on the books.
But if you look at airlines, if you look at telecom, if you look at meat packers, if you look at, huge parts of our economy across the board, you've seen huge waves of mergers.
Less competitive.
So you go from dozens of companies just to a very small number. That hurts Americans and American communities in all sorts of ways.
If you want a yes man who puts his donors and his party bosses over Nebraskans, vote for Pete. If you want someone who's going to fight for you, vote for me, Dan Osborne.
I hear Nebraska's not too happy, and that a lot of them are facing bankruptcy after they can't find people to work. A lot of people aren't coming to work right now, worried that they're going to get picked up by ICE. And there was even one family that said they had a 300-year-old ranch that they may lose. And I said, 300 years old ranch, that'd have been 1725. I wonder what the Native Americans thought about that one. But I don't know, Nebraska. Maybe they'll give you some of the money from Illinois that he kept. I'm not sure. I mean, y'all voted for him. So maybe he'll give you all that money. All right, Nebraska, I hope things work out for you, and I hope your state don't go bankrupt. I hope not. Or get out there and get working. The unemployment office, though, that's where you go if people need jobs. Just go to the unemployment office and tell them you're looking for workers. And I'm sure they'll be able to get something figured out for you over there. But yeah, good luck, Nebraska. I hope everyone does well. Bye.
All right, boys. I'm a little further away from the calf pen so you can hear it. But up here, Imperial Auction Market, Imperial, Nebraska. Selling calves today, right off the cow. First time I haven't weaned my own calves, and fuck, I can't remember when, I guess. Gonna get a pretty good test of that precondition or no precondition your calves, because I preconditioned 75% of them, but I got one pasture, 37 head, that I couldn't get preconditioned. Everything else is the same on them, same kind of quality. So we'll test and see if people are actually willing to pay a little more for preconditioned calves. And for what they're costing, I guess if it was me, I would be willing to pay a little bit more for a preconditioned calf. But anyway, it's a pretty good sale today. It looks like Preston's got lined up probably over 1,000 balling calves, most with fall shots, except me where I fucked up and didn't get them all preconditioned. But anyway, we'll get this deal done, and maybe I'll take a little video of the sale, and you can we'll see what the market is. Had guys a little bit worried after Trump come out with his grand plan to reduce the price of beef in the grocery stores, but didn't look like it hurt anything yesterday. In McCook, Wake House still good market. The futures are in fact all right, and I think this calf deal is going to be all right, guys. And I forgot to tell you guys, you can oh wait, look who's here. We Trish, of course, she's my neighbor, but then we got the most famous brand inspector here in Southwest Nebraska, Ron, aka the Greasy Ranch Hand. But anywho, I was gonna say, you can get on Cattle USA and bid if you prefer, if you'd like. If you can't make it, it's gonna last minute. So if you ain't gonna be here, you can do it that way. And there's some fucking people that don't know how to park worth a fiddler's fuck. Anyway, that's all I got. We may do some videos.
Nebraska is considering a ban on lab-grown meat, following Florida's lead, which enacted a similar law last year. Governor Jim Pillen supports the move to protect Nebraska's agriculture industry, calling lab-grown meat bioreactor meat and questioning its equivalency to traditional meat. Critics argue such bans stifle innovation in sustainable food production. What do you think? Should states ban lab-grown meat to protect traditional farming, or should they embrace it as a future food source? Share your thoughts.
Okay, guys, I've I haven't had an opinion on this. I've got the opinion in my head, but I just haven't been able to. Typically, I keep my actual opinions to myself. I want to show you what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, but when it comes to my opinion, it's hard for me to give you my opinion, and just because I don't want my opinion to lead you on a path that you don't want to be on. But this beef and Trump and the Packers, 30 days ago, Trump come out and he said, Trump or the USDA said that they are going to pay the producer to produce more beef, okay? And everybody in the beef industry just, was in an uproar that we're going to kill the market if we have government intervention in this. And so basically, Trump, he says, okay, well, we can't do that. But the moms in the grocery stores that are going to buy food for their kids, they're still paying too much for their beef. So I feel like I still have to do something in order to curb the price of what the consumer is paying for in the grocery store. And I personally agree. I realize they're paying $8 for a coffee. So why is $5 a pound for a hamburger? Why is that too much? Well, just historically, $5 for a pound of hamburger is too much. So Trump is still, he wants $2 gas. So he's got the price of gasoline down. Basically, he wants the consumer to have more dollars to spend in the economy. He wants a robust economy. all the prices have come down except beef. So right now he's thinking like, okay, well, beef is too high price. So what can I do to lower beef price? So he tried to pay us as the producer to produce more. You know, we bitched about that, said, oh, you can't do that. So now he says, well, so let's import beef from Argentina. Well, it's not a huge amount, but when you import beef from Argentina, it's going to go from Argentina and it's going to come over here and it's going to go into JBS's pocket. You know, JBS is going to get that beef. They're going to sell it for a high price. So JBS is going to then profit and the rancher is not. Trump's original plan was, let's pay the producer to profit. Let's pay the producer so he can profit. We said no, so now he's going to pay the packer, and the packer's going to profit. So I guess, I don't know if that set a piece of my mind, but I guess I got that off my chest.
What in the world do we do with all of this corn? Where does it all end up? Since 1985, Chief Ethanol has been turning our corn into clean burning fuel, supporting rural jobs, strengthening local ag markets, and reducing our need to be dependent on foreign oil. Now they're taking the next big leap with carbon capture technology. The fermentation process at ethanol plants naturally gives off pure CO2. And now Chief is capturing that carbon and sending it all safely underground. That means cleaner air, lower emissions, and a safer, more sustainable future for all of us. Thank you to Chief Ethanol for keeping Nebraska strong and forward-thinking for 40 years and counting. They're a great channel partner, and I'm happy to support their efforts in agriculture. So exciting to see innovation happening in my own backyard with a product I spend every single day working on. From the fields, straight to the fuel pumps. I'm so proud to stand with a company that's so committed to farmers and the future. Thank you to Chief Ethanol. Now back to work.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.